So we got some new details on Fallout 76. Today what we're going to be looking at is details pertaining to the PvP aspects of this game. And an extra one looking at some of the settlement building. And I gotta say, even though all I'm really showing you today is 4 tweet exchanges, I feel like these 4 tweet exchanges provide way more clarity than a lot of the interviews or even just the press conferences and trailers we've seen in the past. I don't know what it is about them, but it just seems like it's very verbatim and it's very straight to the point. I kind of get the idea immediately without having to uncover much. And in addition, we have Pete Hines saying something Todd said in the past was actually totally incorrect, so that's interesting. Either way, I recently made a video criticizing Bethesda for a lot of their practices as far as the marketing of this game goes. I'll have it linked in the eye if you guys want to check that out. But otherwise, the first tweet, why there is PvP element in F76 if there is 0 incentive or reward for killing another player or penalty for dying. If a player dies, he doesn't lose anything. In a way, the whole confrontation between players wouldn't scare me at all because I got nothing to lose. So Pete Hines' response to this, you can see there's an incentive for engaging in player combat and being successful. It's in one of the videos, it's not just overly punishing if you do and die. So I'll show you guys the short clip in full right now, then I'll actually go through and kind of break it down a little bit because I feel like there's a number of interesting things that happen.
Some of your fellow survivors may not be neighborly. Chin up there, sport.
So 2 players enter into combat. As you can see on the 1 player screen, you get an under attack little thing and you're going to get a reward of 10 caps for seemingly killing Preston Garvey. It seems like the other player actually shooting a missile at you is what registered it as you being under attack. The interesting thing though, it seemingly deals 0 damage, like the player never took damage in this little clip. Now that might be just some like God mode or something going on for the E3 conference, but that's an interesting mechanic if it literally is just a player shooting in your general direction and they never have to hit you. Then he shoots P. Garvey, who is seemingly entered into some kind of down state. Maybe his teammates could revive him here. And after finishing him off, you get 8 caps. So I have no idea how this system works because, alright, you seemingly get 8 caps for getting revenge on this player. Maybe these two had an interaction in the past where the other player killed you and then you came back and finished him off. But just as a kind of an aside from the tweet, where was the reward 10 caps from the start of this clip? Like, seemingly it says reward, you're gonna get 10 caps for killing this other guy. Then after killing him, you get 8 caps and it shows 8 plus 10. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. So back to what Pete Hines says, obviously the incentive for player combat here is caps. Caps will probably be used to trade with other players, maybe even buy stuff from some of the non-human NPC vendors if they exist. This obviously raises a number of questions. If the other player is a significantly higher level, does that mean you'll get more caps? Obviously that seems like it would follow, but it is also dependent on what kind of equipment he has. Like that guy had a missile launcher. That's a fairly high level piece. You would think you would get more than 8 caps for taking down the guy with the missile launcher. It seems like Bethesda is trying to make it so you don't get a huge reward for PvP combat, so people aren't griefing and consistently trying to PvP, but at the same time in a lot of other games there's no reward for PvP combat and people still PvP all the time. On to the next tweet, why has there been no word on if 100% full hard opt-out of PvP in Fallout 76 is an option or not? PvE players are desperate to know if we are being taken care of, or you don't care about us and we just abandon all hope now and find a game that wants our business. So to start things off, screw this guy, that's not how you communicate. Even if you're disgruntled or unhappy with how Fallout 76 was presented and revealed, or even how the game itself looks, this is not how you communicate with another human. Please don't do this. It's an online game, there will be other people in your game. There's no version where you're the only person in the world except for private servers eventually. There's no option where you can turn off other players or prevent them from interacting with you at all. So this was effectively confirmed by Todd Howard in like the first interview he gave. But if you're somehow still confused, this seems like it's going to be pretty concrete. When you play Fallout 76, PvP will be enabled. I'm sure there'll be some kind of anti-grief measures if you get killed repeatedly by the same person over and over again. Maybe it'll disable PvP for you too, but largely it's a PvP game. So then that same guy asks a follow-up question. That doesn't answer the question I asked. We don't want to avoid other players, we just want to not have other people be allowed to kill us. Like how every other good online game somehow allows, via PvP being separated, official servers, flagging whether you want to PvP or not. And Pete's response, as Todd explained at E3, you don't pick a server, you never see a server, there are no servers with different flags, we don't have an option to opt out of PvP, we continue to tweak systems to control negative PvP behavior like griefing. So as I mentioned prior, I feel like a lot of this stuff was known by many in the community, but obviously for some, not in a concrete enough way. And just in general, I feel like this tweet exchange, although the one guy was extremely rude, and again, that's not how you communicate with another person, for me at least, it seemed to provide a lot more clarity than a lot of the other interviews for whatever reason. So then last but not least, somebody asked, I hear the size of your settlement you're able to build is pretty small. Is there any way to expand how big your settlement can be? Pete Hines responds with, I don't know how anyone would know since we haven't given out any info about it. And to that, I'll show you this clip.
You're able to build, like how large a homestead are you able to build? Like an entire settlement or just a really big house?
No, it's I would say a small set. Without like saying like how many units in game space it is hard to. If the ones you see in the video are like the scale of it, like it's a decent size to build what you want, but it's not a mini city.
And then the guy actually brings that up and he says, I mean, there's an interview where someone states that it'll be limited to the size in the trailers, but cool. And then Pete says some stuff, but more or less he says there's no actual final size. They haven't settled on a number. And honestly, I'm kind of happy about that. If you look at a lot of the trailers for Fallout 76, the settlements aren't massive. Like, they're a little on the small side. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd be totally okay with the size they're currently at. They're not like miniature, but if they could be a little bit bigger, if you could actually have like a good amount of area for you and your friends to build in, or even potentially maybe that's just your settlement size, but then one of your friends can build a settlement next to you and the two can be connected in some way or something along those lines, I think would be pretty cool. I mean, obviously this seems like a kind of hiccup that one person said in an official interview that that is the defined size, and obviously it's not the defined size, but I guess they had a lot going on. It was a busy week, so these things happen. And again, the reason I wanted to make this video is I feel like a lot of these tweets were just very clear and to the point. Like, I personally feel like I have a good understanding of what they're going for with some of these different features and how they will function later in the game. Maybe it's the wording they chose, maybe it's because people were asking follow-up questions and Pete was answering them, but I wanted to make this video on it all because I feel like it's actually a good source of information that will otherwise go unnoticed because it's in tweet responses. Either way, it's largely going to wrap it up for this video, but before we end things off, we have today's psych fun fact of the day, and that's going to be sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp's a website that can connect you with literally thousands of different counselors to suit your needs. It's pretty much the best option as far as online counseling goes. It's more affordable than a lot of the alternatives and even in-person counseling, and you have different options as far as how to communicate, whether it be text chat, voice chat, or even full-on video calls. It's an extremely flexible platform meant to fit your needs. I'll have a link at the top of the description down below for any of you who are interested. So a lot of us buy too much stuff. Even if you're frugal in one area of your life, you probably spend a little bit too much money in another area. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but why is that? And for those people that it is a bad thing and they really spend too much money, maybe not even in just one area, but in all areas, what's the deal? What's going on there? A study from 2013 attempted to look at this. What kind of outside or internal factors actually led to people spending so much more money than other people? They looked at 232 subjects, which, be wary, that is a fairly small sample size, and it was roughly 50-50 to males and females. What they found was one of the biggest factors for whether or not these people would spend a lot of money or not was how they scored on their consumer susceptibility to interpersonal influence and atmospherics. So in other words, how much they were affected by the perception of other people's, how much they cared about what others thought, and of course what others were doing also. And I feel like it's important to mention at this point, like when you see stuff on social media, people are typically highlighting the best of their life. If you go on Instagram and see a bunch of really cool pictures and it kind of makes you feel bad about yourself, they're showing like a highlight reel of all the things that happened to them over the past months, weeks, or years. That's not their day-to-day life. Their day-to-day life is probably pretty equal to yours. Just because someone goes on vacation once a year but then posts the pictures over the next 6 months doesn't mean they live a lavish lifestyle for 6 months, just that they space pictures out for 6 months. Either way, it's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.
Nice try, dude. I'm really impressed at how long you survived. Jesus.